You can do it, so you say it's impossible.
No. I mean, yes, I can't do it, but it's not why I say it's not possible. Just like I did with one-arm handstand push-up in this video, I'm gonna use my knowledge of physics, human body, and common sense to prove my point. But let's start from the beginning. Close to impossible is a calisthenics skill that is performed by holding a static position on a bar where your arms are parallel to the ground and the rest of the body is vertical. The angle between your arms and torso should be a right angle. I don't know who coined that name and what he meant by it. I can see it being a clever name if you think about it this way. All the imperfect attempts that people are doing are the actual close to impossible skill, because the ideal form is the impossible that they're trying to get close to, but never will. With this interpretation, the name itself implies that performing the skill in a perfect form is not possible and all you can do is get close. Regardless of that thinking, let's entertain the idea that close to impossible is just a name and doesn't imply anything. In the same way that impossible dip is just a name because it's actually possible. Whoever came up with this term must have been a terrible pessimist. First, we're gonna go through some basic concepts of mechanics for those of you who didn't listen during the physics class because you're into sports and you're never gonna need that knowledge. Torque is a rotational force that's responsible for turning, twisting, or rotating an object. You apply torque when you use a screwdriver or a wrench to rotate a screw. It is generated when a line of action of force is at a distance from the axis of rotation. In simpler words, if I push here, there's no torque, so the door won't move. If I push here, the door will rotate because I generated torque by applying a force at a distance from the hinges. The magnitude of torque is the product of the magnitude of the force and the perpendicular distance of the line of action of force from the axis of rotation. So the bigger the force or the distance, the bigger the torque. If you hang something in this manner, it will always balance itself out by aligning its center of mass directly below the point of support, which is up here. When you bring it out of balance, gravity is now acting at a distance from the axis of rotation. Because of that, torque is generated and the object rotates. If you want it to stay in this position, that force needs to be counteracted, and there are two ways to do so. You can either counteract the force that creates the torque, or you can create enough torque resistance to oppose it. You can apply a force somewhere along the height of the object acting in the opposite direction. As long as the sum of all the forces that would generate torque is equal to 0, the object won't rotate. That's pretty straightforward. As long as I pull here, the object will stay in its place. Just because there's torque exerted doesn't mean that the object is rotating. For that to happen, the magnitude of the torque has to be larger than the object's resistance to rotation. Think of using a wrench. When you want to unscrew a rusty screw, you pull the end of the wrench to generate torque. However, the screw will only move if you exceed the screw's resistance to rotation. Otherwise, torque will be generated, but no rotation occurs. In the previous example, there was very little resistance to rotation in the support. The object could rotate around this point freely, even if the slightest torque was exerted. However, if I put a rubber band around the rotation point like this, I'm increasing its resistance to rotation. It can still turn around like before, but you need bigger forces to make that happen. The weight of the object does not generate enough torque to exceed the resistance, so the system stays balanced. That's enough of the theory. All you need to remember is the two ways of dealing with torque generated by the center of mass of the object not being directly below the support. This problem does not exist when you hold, for example, front lever, because you allow your body to find balance in the position. All you have to do is to keep this shape with your body. Planche is also a balanced position, although you need to actively work on keeping the center of mass of your body above your hands. CTI is different in this manner, as the center of mass of your body is going to be at a distance from the bar equal to more or less the length of your arms. This creates a massive torque that you have to counteract to stay in that position. This is where the two methods of dealing with torque come into play. The first option was to apply a force to the body directed away from the support. This is what's going on here. If you ask someone to push or pull your legs away from the bar, he will cancel out the force that creates torque and pulls you back under the bar. In this setup, the position is very similar to front lever in that you mainly use your triceps, lats and abs to keep your body in this shape. Holding this position is slightly harder than holding front lever. The alternative to having someone pull on your feet is to push away from the bar on your own using your own foot. This, however, is not the true CTI, I think you'll agree. At the most, it could be called assisted close to impossible hold. To be able to hold the real CTI, you'd have to use the second method of dealing with torque that I talked about earlier. Generate enough resistance to oppose the torque. This is achieved by squeezing the bar hard and trying to twist it in your hands like this. Squeezing the bar creates more friction, which means more torque resistance. It helps to prevent the bar from rotating inside your hand. Twisting the bar is necessary to stabilize the wrist to be in line with the forearm. If you don't twist it hard enough, this would happen. False grip can be used to help out with wrist stabilization, increase the amount of friction, and bring your body a bit closer to the bar, decreasing the amount of torque generated and hence making the skill a bit easier. It's not going to help too much though, because the torque created by that position is way too big to be opposed with just your grip. You can only counteract a small portion of that torque, which means you will fall down or rotate down to be more precise. This will bring the center of mass of your body closer to the bar, decreasing the amount of torque generated. For the same reason people push their hips forward. It decreases the torque and makes the position much easier to hold. Close to impossible is actually impossible not because the forces that the position generates are too big, but because you have to overcome them using your wrists and forearms, which are simply not strong enough. Even if you had the strongest lats and triceps in the world, it wouldn't help you in getting that skill because their strength is not the deciding factor. All you could achieve by pulling harder with your lats is changing the angle between your arms and torso. And it shouldn't change. It's supposed to be constant at 90 degrees. Not allowing yourself to fall down from here to here means the same as not allowing the bar to rotate in your hands from this to that position. How much resistance to such force can you really muster? Imagine a situation in which you hold a bar in front of you like this. Now imagine that there's another bar welded to it like this, and it's as long as your arms extended in front of you. Let's say 1 meter. At the end of that bar, there's a spot where you can stack weights on top of each other. Your task is to hold this construction horizontally in the air just by squeezing your grip on the bar, not allowing it to rotate inside your hands. While you struggle to hold that contraption by itself, I'm starting to stack more and more weights at the end of the bar. I can't imagine being able to hold more than a couple of kilograms this way, and yet CTI would require you to hold something like 95% of your body weight this way. Even if you somehow acquired superhuman forearm strength, the bar would just rip all the skin inside your hands off the bone. I know I didn't provide any hard numbers or calculations, but I figured it wouldn't help much. I could tell you that CTI exerts around 700 Newton meters depending on your body weight and composition. But does that number tell you anything? You can easily imagine what it feels like to lift 50 kilograms, but opposing 50 Newton meters says nothing, at least to me. Even if I calculate all the forces acting upon your body, there's no data to compare them to. At least not without doing some real-life experiments, which I don't have the ability or motivation to do. So in the end, it's only my opinion based on my common sense and the knowledge of basic mechanics. Do with it what you want. Scouring YouTube for CTI videos just further proves my thesis. The most promising attempts are shot at a weird angle, which doesn't show the position well. If the camera angle is good, then you can clearly see that the angle between their arms and the bar is around 45 degrees. A long way to the required 90 degrees. The closest thing to CTI that I saw was performed by Artem Morozov in this video. However, the difference is that he used a different grip, which allowed him to create much bigger torque resistance. It's like the difference between holding a shovel horizontally in this way and that way. You can see how I struggled to hold it up even using both of my hands with that grip. And that's it for this video. Keep training hard and keep dreaming big, but do not think you can cheat the laws of physics.